What's up, everybody? Welcome to the video. My channel name is College Football Frenzy, and today I'm going to be breaking down my SEC team rankings for the 2020 college football season. So obviously, year in and year out, the SEC is usually the best conference. It has some of the best talent in all of America. It constantly is producing championship-winning teams, playoff contenders. It's the only conference to ever have two teams in the playoff in the college football playoff era, and even before the playoff era, it had two teams from the same conference in the BCS National Championship game. I'm obviously talking about 2011. So the SEC, one of the most dominant conferences. Their really big run started in 2006 with the Florida Gators, and then it really from there on, they've stayed dominant. They really haven't had that many off years. They've been a very good conference, getting great recruiting classes, great talent. Overall, this is a very intriguing conference each year with some of the best games, most entertaining matchups in all of college football. So I decided I would rank the 14 teams in the SEC, and I'm very excited for this one. Obviously, a lot of SEC fans, probably a lot of you are going to disagree with this, even if some people think it's a good ranking, because overall SEC fans are competitive, and there are a lot of fan bases that think their team is going to have a great year, and I don't blame them because some of these teams are really talented, but again, when you have too many talented teams, some of them aren't going to perform as great as we thought they were. But let's get into it. 14, I have Vanderbilt. So I thought this was a pretty big no-brainer here. I'll get into a sec why I put number 13 over 14. But Vanderbilt comes in at 14. They just fired their offensive and defensive coordinators, so there's a little bit of change coming in. Derek Mason, he's kind of on the hot seat as the head coach. But right now, Vanderbilt's not doing much. And they had a decent season in 2018, but it was a big drop-off in 2019. 3-9 overall, just didn't get much done. The quarterback situation was pretty bad. The offense overall was pretty slow. It was not a good season for the Commodores overall. Their FBI rank, their final FBI rank of 2019 was 94 in the nation. Their recruiting class for this upcoming season, it's ranked 52 in the nation. That's according to 24/7 Sports. And like I said, their overall record was 3-9 last year. So the stats don't lie. It doesn't look like it's going to be a great season for the Commodores based on what happened last year and their recruiting class that they have right now. They just don't have a lot of talent. And to be honest, I don't think they cared too much about it either because they've got a great baseball program and they're mainly focused on academics as well. But right now, it just doesn't look like they're going to have a great season. So I have them at 14. So 13, I have Arkansas. So most years, Arkansas would be at number 14, in dead last. But I have Arkansas at number 13 this year. I think adding Sam Pittman, having him as the head coach now in place of Chad Morris, is going to help the team overall. Their recruiting class was actually pretty good. It finished 30 in the nation for 2020. So they had a pretty good recruiting class overall. And a new head coach, Sam Pittman, I think he's got the experience to maybe turn this program around a little bit to at least be a 5-7 team in the near future, or maybe even a bowl eligible team in maybe like 4 years or 3 years. So I think this team is definitely going to improve a little bit. They also have Felipe Franks coming in from Florida at the quarterback position, so that's definitely going to help them a lot. So overall, they should be a better team. Their final FBI rank last year was 91. They had a really bad season last year. They got blown out by like Western Kentucky, lost to San Jose State, barely beat Portland State, but some of those things should turn around overall. They should definitely be better than they were last year. Even if they're still a 2-10 or 3-9 team, they should at least be better talent-wise. So I think Arkansas is 13 this time. I don't have them as the worst team in the SEC. 12, Missouri. So I'm not really buying in. You know, I know they got a pretty good head coach, Elijah Drinkwitz. He came in from App State. And App State last year went 13-1. So he had a pretty good tenure at App State, leading them to a Sun Belt championship. I think they won the New Orleans Bowl, and overall only one loss on the season. Finished as a top 20 team. So I understand he had a great year last year at App State, but overall he's still a new head coach at Missouri. It's the SEC, big jump. It's going to be a little bit different. It's going to take time to change. I don't think they have great talent. Overall, their recruiting class was only ranked 50th in the nation, and at least towards SEC standards, that's not very good. Their final record last year was 6-6, and of course they didn't go to a bowl game because they got into trouble with the NCAA. But overall, I just don't think they're that great of a program. I don't think they've got that much talent, and they have a new head coach. It's going to take time to transition. So right now I have them at 12. I think they're either a 5-7 or 6-6 football team next year. 11, the South Carolina Gamecocks. So I have to be honest with you. If South Carolina had a decent or just an average schedule last year, there's no doubt they would be bowl eligible. They had by far the hardest schedule in all of college football last year. I mean, they had to play Clemson, they had to play Alabama, they had to play Florida, they had to play Georgia, and they actually beat Georgia. Even what was supposed to be a cupcake game against App State turned into a game against a top 20 team. They had plenty of tough games. Texas A&M, that was one of their easier games, Texas A&M. So you get it. Their schedule was very, very tough last year. And for this upcoming season, people actually say they're going to have the hardest schedule again all of college football. I don't find that to be true. I think their schedule is not as hard as a team like USC, or the other USC, I should say. But overall, for this upcoming season, I expect South Carolina to be similar talent-wise. Their recruiting class overall is 18, but I don't think their experienced talent is that great. Will Muschamp is still there. I don't know if what he's doing there. I don't think he's a great coach. Like I said, the record last year was 4-8. It should improve their schedule, in my opinion. They have a few easier games on it. They don't have to worry about playing a team like App State, or I don't think they have to play Alabama. They do have to play LSU, though, so it's still a tough schedule. It should be a little bit easier. I think they're either like a 5-7 or 6-6 team next year. Their final FBI rank last year was 41. Not bad for a 4-8 team. But overall, I just don't think the talent is great at South Carolina. I don't think overall they're going to compete with the really, really good teams. So right now, I have them as 11. I don't think they're at that step yet. 10, Mississippi State. All right, I love that Mike Leach is coming in. One of the greatest personalities in all of college football, obviously. He's a fantastic coach. Came from Washington State. Great. He's especially good with offenses, obviously. I will say this coronavirus thing probably hurts Mississippi State a lot, and I mean a lot, because Mike Leach is a new coach. He's going to need to get used to being with that talent. He's not going to have much time to get used to being with that talent now because of the coronavirus. So overall, that definitely could hurt Mississippi State this year. But talent-wise, I think they'll be decent talent-wise. Their recruiting class was ranked 27th in the nation. That was pretty good. They were 6-6 last year, so for going 6-6 and getting the 27th best recruiting class in the nation, that's pretty good. I did hear that. I think some guys decommitted from Mississippi State after Mike Leach sent that. He sent a bad tweet out. So that might hurt them a little bit. But overall, this should be a 6-6 team, in my opinion, next year. I think they're pretty good. I don't think they're on the level of the really, really good teams, but they should at least be maybe a bowl-eligible team, at least put up some competitiveness against average SEC teams like maybe Ole Miss or teams like that. So they should be decent next year, but they're at 10 right now. 9, Ole Miss. So they have Lane Kiffin, new head coach at Ole Miss. And obviously, just like Mississippi State, you're getting a great personality at head coach. Lane Kiffin has definitely not been the most successful coach in all of college football, but he's one of the biggest names in all of college football. He obviously coached at Tennessee, then he coached at USC as well. Then he was an assistant coach at Alabama. Then he found himself at FAU in the Conference USA. He won a Conference USA title last year, and now he's found himself back as a head coach in the SEC. I think it should be interesting to see how he does. Kind of like with Mississippi State, the coronavirus thing might hurt them because he might not be too used to the talent. Their schedule overall is very hard next year. They have one of the hardest schedules in all of the SEC, so that's definitely going to hurt the Rebels. That's going to be tough for them. I think at best, they're probably 7-5 next year. But right now, in my opinion, they're average. Their recruiting class overall is 34, so it's decent. It's not as great as their rivals was, but it's overall decent recruiting class. So we'll see how the talent is. But again, kind of like Mississippi State, the coronavirus might hurt them because he needs time to get used to being with his players. 8, Kentucky. So Kentucky in 2018 was a really good football team, a ranked football team. They won the Citrus Bowl. They beat Florida. They they were pretty competitive overall in the SEC East. In 2019, they took a step back, and really nobody was surprised that they took a step back at all. I don't think people were expecting them to be a top 25 team again, and they still made it competitive with teams like Florida. So overall, they were a decent football team last year. For this upcoming season, they have Joey Gatewood now at the quarterback position. He transferred from Auburn. That's definitely going to help them, so you've got a good quarterback overall. I will say they're losing Lynn Bowden, best wide receiver / quarterback ever. So that's gonna hurt him a lot. I don't mean that literally, obviously, but it's gonna losing Bowden. I think he was a key playmaker. It's gonna hurt him a lot. Overall, their recruiting class is ranked 23 in the nation, so it's pretty good. So we'll see how they do over there. I'm expecting another 7-5, maybe 8-4 season for the Wildcats right now, but I have them at 8. All right, 7, Tennessee. A lot of people probably won't like to see this. I know a lot of Tennessee fans probably have higher expectations than finishing as the 7th best team in the SEC, but there are just a lot of other better teams in the SEC, in my opinion. I'll admit, Tennessee has a great recruiting class. It's actually ranked 10th in the nation, I believe, according to 24/7 Sports. So they have a great recruiting class. I think Jeremy Pruitt is bringing in tons of talent there. There's no doubt about that. I don't think they're going to have the same early season slip-ups. Besides from probably losing to Oklahoma next season, I don't think they're going to lose against an FCS or a Group of 5 school like they did last year with Georgia State. That was a Group of 5 school, and they lost to BYU, an independent school. I don't think that's going to happen. I think all of their losses are going to be to good football teams. Overall, I have them going 8-4, but I don't think they're on the level I don't think they have the chemistry yet to be competing with teams like Alabama or Georgia. I think they could maybe make it competitive with Florida maybe, but besides from that, I don't really see them having a great shot at winning the SEC East. I think that's going to come in a few years, but right now, I still feel like they're only the 3rd best team in the division. All right, 6, Texas A&M. I don't want to hype up Texas A&M too much because obviously they didn't do a great job last year. But to be fair, their schedule was absolutely brutal. They played 3 number 1s. They played Alabama, they played Clemson, they played LSU, they played Georgia. They weren't number 1, obviously, but still, Georgia was tough. And, they played some other teams. Even Auburn, that was a tough game. So they had a really tough schedule, Texas A&M. So I'm not going to throw Jimbo under the bus too much. Overall, they probably could have been a little bit more competitive in some of those games. Like, LSU wasn't competitive at all. And they probably could have put up a better fight against Alabama. But still, they're going to have pretty good talent next season. I mean, they have, overall, the 6th best recruiting class of 2020, according to 24/7 Sports. And, I think we'll see how Kellen Mond does, but I think he'll definitely improve a little bit. So on paper, Texas A&M should be a pretty good football team overall. Definitely a competitive football team in the SEC. At worst, I really see them going 9-3 at worst. Their schedule is much easier than it was last year, so they should at least be a 9-3 team. I think this team is decent overall with pretty good talent, so I have them at 6 right now in the SEC, but I definitely feel like they can compete with some of the better teams. 5, Auburn. All right, so I have the Tigers at 5 right now. They really overall did not have too many big losses. Besides from losing Derek Brown at the defensive tackle position, they didn't really have any huge losses, so I don't think they're going to get hurt by any losses. Their returning production's pretty good overall. Bo Nix, hopefully he matures a little bit for them. They need him to mature a little bit. He's still going to have some weapons to throw to. And overall, Auburn has the 7th best recruiting class in all of college football, so that's definitely going to help. We'll see, how the season shakes out. They always have a tough schedule. As usual, they have a tough out-of-conference opponent. This time it's North Carolina. And, of course, the in-conference schedule, they always have to play Georgia and Alabama and LSU. That hurts. So it's going to be a tough schedule as usual. It's always a bumpy ride for Gus Malzahn and company. It looked like in 2017 at the start of the season he was going to get fired, and then all of a sudden they turned it around. It looked like they might make the playoff, and then they lost the SEC championship game. They didn't make it. That's just Auburn. They have crazy bumpy rides under Gus Malzahn, but right now I have them at 5. I think they're talented, but their competition is the level of competition they're facing is very high. For the LSU Tigers, the defending national champions. So I think they're pretty close overall with the number 3 on the list, but I had to put them at 4. the loss of talent is huge. I mean, I have to be honest. The loss of talent is huge. I understand they won the national championship last year, but losing Joe Burrow, obviously, that's the biggest loss. You're losing Clyde Edwards-Helaire, running back as well. That's a big loss. You're losing Grant Delpit. You're losing plenty of other guys in the defense like Patrick Queen. I can go on and on about your losses. Justin Jefferson. A lot of talent that LSU is losing, and I'm sure Miles Brennan can be decent. I think Jamar Chase is a great wide receiver, and I understand LSU has the 4th best recruiting class in all of college football. So they should be, they're getting a lot of young talent, but overall, it's still not the same as it was last year, and they're losing Joe Brady, the passing coordinator, and Dave Aranda, the defensive coordinator. So they're losing a lot at the coaching staff and talent-wise. Still, though, they should be a pretty good team with their good recruiting class, and they've got a great head coach. Coach Orgeron's great, so I still have them as 4. But again, lot of talent that they just lost, so it's going to be a bumpy road for them, I think. 3, Florida. So again, there wasn't a huge difference between 3 and 4. I think Florida didn't lose too much talent. Besides C.J. Henderson, he was a top 10 pick. He was pretty good overall. Besides from losing him, they didn't lose any huge playmakers in the defense or the offense. Kyle Trask, I think, was decent last year. Expect from him to be better, in my opinion. You also got Kyle Pitts still there. He's a big weapon. And their recruiting class is pretty good. It's ranked, I believe, 9th overall in all of America. So they've got a great recruiting class coming in. I like what Dan Mullen's doing. I think he's turned the program around overall. They're doing great. I expect probably with their schedule, I think it could be an 11-1 season for the Gators for this upcoming season. I think they're going to be a very good team overall. So I have them at 3. Number 2, the Georgia Bulldogs. All right, not a big surprise here. I still have Georgia over their rival Florida. Listen, they pulled in the best recruiting class in all of America in 2020. Jamie Newman's going to be most likely will be the quarterback. He transferred from Wake Forest. There's other options at the quarterback, but most likely it's going to be Newman. And I think he's at least going to be better than a guy like Jake Fromm, who severely, I feel like, has digressed over 2019. He did not do a great job in 2019. Georgia's still going to have some weapons. They are losing some guys like DeAndre Swift at the running back and I think a couple wide receivers. But overall, they should at least have a few weapons. Their offensive line, they're losing Andrew Thomas. That hurts. But besides from that, not too many big losses on offense. And the defense should be great. It should be great. The big question, though, in my opinion, the biggest question is how will the running back position fare? Because Georgia has been known to have great running backs. They're definitely in contention for running back university. Herschel Walker, obviously, historically, and recently you've got guys like Chubb, Sony Michel, you've got DeAndre Swift, like I said. So it's going to be interesting to see how the running back position fares out for Georgia. But overall, I have them at 2 right now. I think they still should be a great football team next year. But they've got a tough schedule. They definitely have a tough schedule. They're facing Alabama and Florida. Those are 2 possible losses. So they've got to be careful next year. They can't slip up against a South Carolina type of team. And number 1, the Alabama Crimson Tide. They're not like a clear favorite like Clemson or Ohio State or Oregon is over their conferences. They're not a clear favorite over teams like Georgia, LSU, or Florida. But in my opinion, they still are the best team in the SEC for 2020. They clearly were in 2019, but I think their defense took a step back last year. It should be pretty good for this upcoming season. They have a few guys coming back on the defense. Their offense, they're losing a lot of weapons. I'll admit, Henry Ruggs, Jerry Jeudy, those are all important factors that they're going to lose. Jedrick Willis and Tua, obviously, those are other big players that they're losing, top 10 picks. So no doubt they're losing a lot of guys in the offense. But I think Bryce Young, he's a 5-star recruit. He should be a pretty good quarterback if he starts. If not, it'll be Mac Jones, who has at least some experience. He played against Auburn, so that's good. So either way, you're going to have a decent quarterback. I think Devontae Smith should be a pretty good wide receiver overall, and Waddle is also returning, so he should be pretty good, a pretty good weapon to go to. So I think the wide receiver core will still be decent. The running back position, Najee Harris, he could be a sleeper to make it to New York to be a Heisman contender. I'm just saying, he could be a Heisman finalist. It's a possibility. He was a great running back last year, very underrated. He was really the only reason, in my opinion, why Alabama was still in the LSU game late in the game. they probably could have lost that one by 20 plus if it wasn't for him. He was a big playmaker in that game. So having him return definitely helps. But right now, the recruiting class, it's number 2. And of course, they still have the GOAT head coach, Nick Saban, best head coach of all time, in my opinion. Only other guy who compares is Bear Bryant, who is also an Alabama head coach. So I have the Crimson Tide at 1 right now. But anyway, that's it for now, guys. Thank you for joining in. Please make sure to like and subscribe. Check out all my other videos. Leave your recommendations, your rankings down below for the SEC. I understand it's a very competitive conference. Pretty much anyone in the top 6, I could see definitely having a good chance to win the SEC. Even a team like Tennessee, I mean, I don't think they really can win the East, but, maybe they have a great season, a breakout season. But overall, yeah, that's my rankings, guys. Thank you for joining in.